Good evening, everyone. I'm Chieda, Events Coordinator for the Seattle Japanese Garden. Thank you for attending the Kaleidoscope virtual event, Ikebana with Phyllis Danielson. We're very fortunate to have the support of the Japan Foundation Center for Global Partnership as a sponsor for this virtual series, including tonight's event. Phyllis Danielson is the president of the Seattle chapter of Ohara School. She has been practicing and teaching Ikebana since 1976. Tonight, Phyllis will introduce us to the basics of Ohara-style Ikebana. We hope you enjoy our presentation.
I'm Phyllis Danielson, president of the Seattle Ohara Chapter. Now, the Seattle Ohara Chapter, I had always understood was the first one in the United States. But last February, when the head of the Ohara Teachers Association was here, she was talking about how she's from Hawaii. And she said the Honolulu chapter was the first one. I got thinking about it. It was formed when he came here. He had just come from Honolulu. He formed theirs, but at that time, they weren't a part of the United States. They weren't a state yet. So we were called the first chapter in the United States. Now they are. Anyway, I've been started studying in 1976. Started teaching in 1982 and have been teaching and demonstrating ever since. I've taught in New York, Texas, Washington, Oregon, Arizona, Canada, and various other places where I've been invited to come and teach and demonstrate. I've demonstrated in the Cayman Islands and Mexico City and a number of places. I'm just happy to be able to come here today for you. Thank you. I'm going to start with a very basic arrangement. The first one we teach, called Rising. And it's in a low open container with the material going up. Right. Then I will add some flowers. And forward. And then a little bit of greenery for with the stem is, when it's a small stem, it's hard to get them to go into the kinzen and stay there, so I bend it over and maybe it will hold better. Let's see. Oops. Should bend it the other way. Ohara is one of the three major schools of Ikebana. There are over 2,000 schools, maybe it's 3,000 now, in Japan, but the three main ones are the originals, Ikenobo, and then Ohara and Sugetsu. Ohara was founded in the late 1800s when Japan finally, after thousands of years, opened its ports to ships from other countries, and Western materials started coming in. Well, you know, flower arrangers, they have to use the latest material. But they found that the materials coming in from Europe were not conducive to their traditional arrangements. Because they had been cultivated to make a show in the garden. So the flowers are larger and the stems shorter. As a result, one of the senior professors of Ikenobo at the time, Unjin Ohara, who was also a potter, made low open containers and did a demonstration showing these, an exhibit of these arrangements that he'd come up with. They were very well received, but Ikenobo, being very traditional, decided they couldn't accept them into their curriculum. So he, with so many people wanting to learn them, he ended up starting his own school. Next one I'm going to do is a very traditional arrangement called a rimpa. It's based on the Rimpa School of Screen Painting. So everything is very stylized and relatively low. So I will do that in these two containers. I'm starting with what is known as a rimpa arrangement, which is based on the Rimpa School screen painting. So it's very stylized and very, very showy. To begin with, I'm putting in some tall coxcomb here, and with it I will place some chrysanthemum. Side I'll place some more. And a little bit of greenery with it. On the side I will place some more of this. That's still too tall. As I said, this is based on the screen paintings, and so everything is fairly low. Carry this over this way. So they are united as one arrangement, but and then I'm going to add a little bit of this wonderful peony leaf at the base. This over here. I have peonies at this time of year have such wonderful color. And then I have some Japanese pampas, which I will make clusters of. My own pampas was beyond it, had already bloomed out too much, so I had to go scavenging at a nearby hospital where they were in more shade. Get some for here. Where did, oh, there he is. Here's a little bit of hydrangea, tail end of our hydrangea to cover the ground a bit more. It makes a nice color combination too, doesn't it? Adding the hydrangea. A little more. This, we don't want a lot more in there. A few more. It's too far out. I'm going to we're closed. Bring it over. Like this one in low. And a bit more over here. And we have to come around the front and adjust this later. Doesn't seem to want to go right. Too long, that's what it is. This kind of mess back here. Now, we'll clean it up. Needs a bit of cleanup around here. But then it will look better. So as you see, they flow together. This is just a freestyle hake arrangement, which means in a tall container. I'm placing some mulberry roots. Mulberry roots in there. I'm going to place these. I hope I get them in the right place. Oops. Not going the right way. Get me out. Everything's going the right way I did it before, but that's the way it happens with these things. Ooh. So I've just made a place my tall flower filler there. See, I bent that slightly so that when it gets in here, it will come forward. Sure. I thought I would have 5 of them because these are small. But this one is starting to come apart. We'll just place it in low just to make the 5th one. That's not going to work. I'm going to have to come around the front to see where this one goes. Right in there. Should go in. There we go. Now we have all 5 petals. get rid of. Last February, the current headmaster of Ohara School was here to do a demonstration and exhibit of using the technology with the modern technology with Ikebana. It was an amazing program. I hope some of you saw it. But one of his newest designs, one he came up with, is what they call Hanakana Day. And we have the three stems come up from a triangle. The three main stems, and they come together and form a triangle up above. So here, there, and there. And then the same colors are repeated down below. I had figured on using some of my purple daisies, which are very close to the color of the monk's hood, for down here. But when I went out to cut some, the cold had gotten to them and they were gone. So I've added a little bit of the blue hydrangea instead to carry it down. And I've used some of the monk's hood down below too. And the peppers and the bittersweet to make a fall arrangement on a holiday. And then Ohara is very well known for its landscape arrangements. And so this one, we have the wood to represent the fallen tree, the woods in the background, the green evergreens, the understory trees of the maple, plus some of the flowers at the base. We have another understory thing would be the hydrangea, and then we have here the leaves, as I used before, and Schizostilus, sometimes known as kaffir lily, and the little weed, and some spent going down hosta leaves, showing the season. It's this time of year especially, we don't want everything perfect. You want to show the effects of the season. So I've got my leaves are spotted, and these costas are starting to go. And even the hydrangeas are ones that have the colors going back for fall. So this is very definitely a fall arrangement. This is one of the most distinctive Ohara arrangements. That would be the end of it, I think. That's what I've got to show you. I hope you enjoy it.
Hi, everyone. And hello, Phyllis. Thank you so much for being here this evening. Sorry about the technical issues we had at the very beginning, but thanks for sticking it out with us. My name is Jessa Gardner. I'm the programs manager for the Seattle Japanese Garden, and I'm here this evening with Phyllis Danielson, whose beautiful, beautiful Ikebana arrangements we just enjoyed. Phyllis, would you like to introduce yourself and maybe talk about your history? I know you talked about it in the video, but just recap a little bit.
I'm Phyllis Danielson, and I'm a first degree master of Ohara School. Been teaching since I started studying in '76 in Buffalo, New York, and started teaching in '82. I have taught all over the country and demonstrated all over the country and abroad. So
that's amazing. We're so lucky to have you do this demonstration for us. We have some really great questions already. Audience, I encourage you to ask questions and I'll read them aloud to Phyllis. But there are a couple really wonderful ones already from Corey. So are you ready to get started? Okay. So with so many different schools of Ikebana, what defines the overall style of it? And how does your school differ from other schools? Right at the end there, you were talking about how the Ohara School is famous for landscapes.
Yes, it's much more naturalistic than some of the other schools. The original school, Ikenobo, was had very set patterns, and to do an arrangement in Ikenobo, at least the old style, you had to wire the plant material from the head of the flower all the way down in order to shape it in preordained patterns, and it was a lot of work and very, very structured. Then in the 1800s, late 1800s, when Japan opened its ports to Western nations for the first time, naturally some plant material started coming in, and our arrangers wanted to use it. But they found that the plant material from Europe had been developed to make a show in the garden with short stems, very showy, large showy flowers. And they didn't fit the traditional styles. So one of the senior professors of Ikenobo, Unshin Ohara, was also a potter, and he made some low open containers, which we call moribana, and developed some styles from using them. And when Ikenobo decided it was just too far out for them to include in their curriculum, he ended up starting his own school. And
wow, so he was a rebel.
Yes. Now, Sugetsu is the other major school. There are many of them, but the other very large school, and was formed like I think in the 20s, and is very avant-garde, very, very modern. So it's quite different. But I like the Ohara School because it is naturalistic. And of course, growing up in the Northwest, we have such beautiful landscape and wonderful plant materials in our yards. So it's nice to use.
Yeah, definitely. It was really interesting to me that you pointed out the imperfections in the plants that you chose, because that feels so different from Western style flower arrangement, yes, where you're just picking the most beautiful flower every time.
Yes, that's very true. I'm a flower show judge for Garden Club too, so I know there we always do everything perfect. It has to be everything perfect, but we want to show the season. In the spring, we wouldn't have things that way. We would show the progression of bloom, the buds, and as well as the fully open flowers.
Oh, cool. So as long as we're talking about flowers, another question I have from our audience is, how are the flowers chosen when you are making your arrangement?
Well, I look out in the yard and see what's there, but and I decide what styles I want to do and go from there too. So but whatever works for the design I'm planning to do is what I choose. I don't know how else to say it.
Is it kind of, I guess, what order do you do things in? You say that you pick the style first, but do you choose the flowers first, or do you sort of have an image in your brain that you're matching the flowers to?
Well, for a demonstration like this, I would see what's in the yard, but there are certain styles that I want to show. I definitely want to show the basic ones and then some of the other styles, and I want to include rimpa, and which is strictly Ohara, based on the rimpa screen paintings, and I want to include landscape. So as I said, it's a combination. I see what I have available, and then if I have to go buy some or scrounge from the neighbors, I do that until I get what I need to do it, to show the styles and show the season.
How do you decide when a particular arrangement is finished?
When it looks right, I guess. There's certain stems that have to go in, especially in the basic ones. You have very set placements for certain flowers, and you always use an uneven number of flowers. You never use 4, you use 3 or 5. If you have to use 4, you count it as 3 and 1. But
because 4 in Japanese is unlucky, because the word for 4, she, is the same pronunciation as the character that they use for death. So, in English, 13 is an unlucky number, or in Western countries, but in Japan, 4 is really unlucky.
Exactly.
Yeah. Speaking of 3s and 5s, we have a really interesting question. Are triangular forms an important part of your arrangements?
Asymmetrical, yes. Most of them are asymmetrical. In Western design, we do symmetrical a lot. But in, I can't think of any of ours that are in Ikebana that are symmetrical as such. They tend to be asymmetrical. That's a part of the way the Japanese look at things. They don't want things perfect.
So you may not be using triangular forms on purpose, but since you're working with uneven numbers, they probably come about pretty naturally. Okay. Let me look through our questions here and make sure I'm giving everyone a chance to ask them. Okay. This is a really cool question from Barbara. How do you know what angles to use, and how do you know what vase to use in your designs? Is there like a preset measurement for the varied heights to balance things?
That's what you learn in your basic classes. Usually it's 1 to 1.5 times the height plus the width of the container for your.
Wow. That's more math than I would have expected.
But you develop an eye, and then you don't measure it as such. But when you start out, you have to measure just to be.
I'm sure after so many years practicing, you haven't measured in quite a while.
Right, except when I'm teaching.
Yes. And do you teach classes here in Seattle?
No, I live down in Vancouver.
Oh, okay.
I was in Seattle for a while, but I'm down in Vancouver, and that's where I've been teaching. Ayako Fuji teaches in Seattle.
Oh, okay, so it is possible to study Ikebana here in Seattle. It's awesome. And where would you recommend people go if they were interested in learning more about Ikebana, is there like a website where they can
There's
find
Ikebana,
resources?
Ikebana International website, yes.
Mhm.
There's Ohara, and there are many things online that you can find for Ikebana,
Mhm.
under both Ikebana and Ohara.
Okay, so they can check out the Ikebana International Group here in
Yes.
Seattle, or they can check out the Ohara School here in Seattle.
Yes.
Great. Do you ever do, for example, wedding arrangements for tables or other special events?
Not for Ikebana. I do that with the garden club work, but not for.
Would it be appropriate? Like, is Ikebana the sort of thing that you would display at a special event, or would that be an
Yes.
inappropriate use of the
I've
arrangement?
done it before, but
Yeah. Okay.
but then my work tends to show, even though I do the garden club work, it has an Ikebana feel to it.
Yeah, you still have that influence in all of your
Oh,
work.
yes.
Yeah. Okay. Wow. So, are there places that you would recommend to get Ikebana like vases, and specifically Ohara style vases?
Seattle Wajimaya, and then just look at the potters.
Yeah. Or should you use a particular style of pot, or can you really use any pot that sparks your imagination?
Just about, because you're not going to find very many local potters who do Moribana containers, because they're difficult to do and keep them flat on the bottom. They'll tend to bubble up when they're fired. And so if you want a Moribana container, you usually have to get it from Japan, although there are some potters here who do them. But Moribana containers, anything. I mean, Hake containers, anything goes. So I have both. Most of them,
Okay.
but I have both.
Wonderful. And I think we probably have time for just a few more questions. So what are some of the common plant materials that you work with in winter?
Well, of course, camellia, pine, deciduous, holly is very good. Any of the berries and that kind of thing with your evergreens work. Let's see, narcissus, the early plum, or the winter blooming flowers. Like there's a viburnum, witch hazel, some of these that will bloom in the winter. And of course, you can always use the cabbage and ferns, nandina, with the berries and the leaves.
I was really surprised to see you using the pepper in your arrangement.
Well, that's modern arrangement, so we don't have to be. We're just looking for color and line rather than.
Okay.
So, and we do use orchids and some of the tropicals too for some of our work.
Well, it looked so beautiful. You know, I wouldn't have, if I were standing like 5 feet away from it looking at it, it wouldn't immediately occur to me like, oh yeah, that's a pepper like you could get at a supermarket. But it really looked beautiful.
And it is seasonal too.
I have a really good question here from, oh my gosh, I'm probably going to mispronounce this name, Meili. So sorry for that. But for the shallow dish arrangements that you use or that you create, do you water them frequently, and how long do they tend to last?
Keep the water above the level of the kenzan, and it depends on which material you're using, how long they last. But they don't go down real fast if you properly condition your flowers, which means put them in deep water when you first bring them in. You cut underwater as you work with them.
Great. Are there any color combinations that you would not use in Ikebana?
I can't think of any. I really can't.
So it's really an art that goes as far as your imagination can take you.
Right.
That's wonderful. Okay. Well, we're supposed to wrap up in just another minute, but is there anything else that you'd like to share today?
I just encourage anyone who's interested to look into it, taking some lessons. And taking lessons, it's a lot of fun, and it really makes your life much prettier.
That's nice. Yeah, because you always have flower arrangements.
Mm-hmm.
Well, thank you so much, Phyllis, for joining us tonight. And thank you everyone in our audience. If you enjoyed this Kaleidoscope webinar, please consider making a donation to the Japanese Garden. Even a small gift of $15 helps us create more content like this and to support the maintenance and growth of the garden far into the future. Have a lovely evening.
Thank you.